Hi guys, I'm very excited to talk to you once more this evening, and I hope you're all doing well. So this evening I thought I'll talk about studying and also working in Germany. If you have been following my post for a while now, I'm sure you would be familiar with some of the things that I'll be talking about this evening. And the reason for this is for you to understand what it really means to study and work at the same time in Germany. But more importantly, to give you some tips to keep in mind, when the time comes, and also to prepare yourself properly before the time. So the first thing that you want to think about is, okay, what types of student jobs are available for you? Or maybe before then, you may want to ask yourself, are you allowed to work or not as a student? As I once said before, your student visa automatically qualifies you, or rather gives you a work permit directly. So you usually would get a student visa for 3 months or 6 months, as the case may be. And then when you convert that to your residence permit, the residence permit comes with the work permit alongside. In my time, I remember I used to have this piece of paper, and then it's written, okay, you're allowed to work basically if you translate it from German to English. And then it's stated also how many days that you're allowed to work in a year. So as a student, you're allowed to work for 240 half days in a year or 120 days full in a year. If you break that down, that's about 20 hours per week. So regular full-time people that work for 40 hours per week, but then for students, since you can only do mini jobs, you work for maximum of 20 hours per week. And if you're in places where they're paying around about 9 euros per hour, so you can calculate or be expecting something about 450 euros per month. In any case, you're actually not permitted to earn more than 450 euros. Yeah, so that brings me to the next point, which is the payment for the mini job. And it all depends on the person you're working for, the company that you're working with. There's also the minimum wage. I think it's about €8.50 to €8.90. Maybe there are little differences from state to state, but of course not less than €8. Most cases, at least from my experience and also from friends that I know, they usually get about 9 to 10 euros per hour. So you may end up working less hours and get that 450 in a month, or a bit more hours to get to that 450 euros per month. In any case, my sincere advice to you, if you're already in Germany or you're yet to come, is you don't have to be in a hurry. Do not come with the mindset that you're coming to just get a job right away. No, because there are really many factors that you have to put into consideration. So one, it depends on which city you are. It depends also on your level of German proficiency, if that's applicable. I mean, in any case, if you can speak German, it makes it a lot easier for you to get student job. It also depends on the flexibility of your study program. Some people, or they have to go to classes 2 to 3 days in a week, and then the other days they are free. Some of us, they have to go to classes 5 times in a week. So you have to think about what works best for you or how is your condition, and then study and work balance. That being aside, even though you have to go to classes 5 times in a week, to the best of my knowledge, the study system here is also flexible, that you may decide to take some courses this year and then some others you move them over to the next year. And what that simply means is this: you want to give yourself enough time such that even if you're studying and working, you won't be under stress or pressure because you're trying to meet up with classes and also the student job and so on. And if your study background does not really equip you with adequate knowledge to cope or move on with the graduate study program that you enroll here, then you may need some extra time, you may need some extra hours to study. My advice usually is, before you begin, think about all these different factors and try to have a plan, don't just jump into it. So talking about what types of student jobs are available, there are really different types of student jobs. The easiest one usually is, okay, working in the bar or in a restaurant. Of course, there are the pros and also the cons. Some of the advantages is that you get to interact with the locals a lot, for sure, and it's kind of easy for you to learn the language and also understand the people easily. On the other side, it could be that they pay less and you may have to work a bit more, and then you're like super exhausted after work and you may not have enough strength or mental focus to study. But of course, if you would do it slowly, say you work maybe 2 times in a week, it may not be a bad idea. Or rather, if you would work just at weekends in the bar or in the restaurant, and then you have the other time to rest, that's also a good idea. On the other hand, if you're someone with, some special soft skills or some kind of IT skills, digital marketing skills, or things that do not involve physical interaction, you could provide freelance services, and you can find different platforms where you can do these kind of services. In any case, you can also use some of these platforms to offer one or two other kind of physical services that really involve meeting people, talking and doing stuff. An example would be like tutoring. You could offer to tutor young guys in secondary school. You could offer to do that. Also within your university, if you're someone who's really smart, you know math, you know physics, you know some, chemistry, biology and stuff like that, you could offer to tutor people. And yeah, depending on how good you bargain with the person, or depending on how much the person who needs this tutoring, but how much they like you or how you guys can negotiate, you could, charge between, I don't know, 9, 10, up to 20 euros per hour or something like that. I think that's also a very good job in the sense that when you teach someone something, you also train yourself on that thing. Usually in most schools, you'll find the notice board where you can put advert for that kind of service, but you can also put it online. There are like really different platforms so you can put information like that. So besides that, you could also like work in factories, but people do that mostly on holidays, like work in factories. They earn a lot of money in a short time. And when you work during holidays, I think you're allowed to work full time and can earn more than 450 euros. But you should always check with the people you're working with to be sure. Okay, so you don't earn a lot of money and then most of them go into tax or something like that. But that being aside, what I really always recommend to people is to find a job which is within your field of study. There are more pros than the demerits. Some of the advantages would be like, for instance, if you're working in the field, which is your discipline, it's like you're already beginning to plan your career well in advance. You're making the necessary connections already well in advance. And before the end of your studies, you can be sure of already having a very good job. And what I always advise people is that when you come, after you settle your whole study thing, the next thing you should do is to try to polish your profile on these professional media platforms like LinkedIn. Try to polish your profile, really update your profile there. Why? Because there are people who may be looking for you. When you polish your profile, try to use really nice keywords that would bring recruiters or potential employers to your profile. So there's LinkedIn, which is like the number one used all over the world, and there's also Zinc, which is very famous in German-speaking countries. Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I really, really recommend this, that you should do this. Put a nice picture there, update your profile, and always, try to read your profile again and see that the things you've written there are correct. Many recruiters are looking for young talents to work with, and the nice part is if you're a student and you work with them, one, the pay is good, the working atmosphere is very professional. In most cases, they are flexible because, of course, they know you're a student, so they will give you something that fits your schedule. And besides that, you can be sure of already securing a job placement before the end of your study. Yeah. So those are like some of the few points that I thought I would highlight this evening. Think about what you want to do in advance. The job opportunities depends on the city that you are. So in small cities, of course, there are less opportunities, but then the living condition or the expenses there are less. In big cities, there are, of course, more demand for people to work, and you may earn more money there, but then the expenses might also be on the high side. So that's more or less about it this evening. I hope I was able to touch on 2 interesting points for you. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for stopping by today again. And I hope I'll see you about the same time next week.